So again, from the terminal aspect, we've created a clear delineation at that neutral frame that surrounds this opening, but we've given a lot of thought to how those openings might work and present themselves on that terminal surface to lure people off the concourse and out of the holding rooms into those concession areas. Does that end? Long question, and I gave you a long answer back. Is that fair? Great.
It appears that there's going to be a lot of standalone concessions. Has the food court concept been eliminated?
The objective for this, I'm going to go to that larger slide overview. I do not believe there will be what you're referring to is one room with a lot of different retail occupancies in it. I do not believe there will be an occurrence of that. What we're converting over to here, as you can see in the red and the green, is a much larger concessions village that mixes. In other words, it's not just dedicated seating with retail around it. It's a retail village that has concessions, holding lounges, corridors to the Skylinks, some other terminal functions, all working together in one concentrated area where you have a large passenger flow. You can see that on both ends where you've got the Skylinks. It's the design, the overall design concept is going more to that direction than isolated events, also mini events of Concession Village. We're bringing them out to a much larger expression to benefit a much greater volume of concessions traffic.
Okay.
I got a quick question. Maybe I don't understand it. Most of the concession areas are toward the ends, but historically, when majority of flights always go to the center. So, especially during slow times. So, am I understanding that most of the concession area will be on the ends, and has some thought been given to that? Because whenever flights are changed or slow down, everything in the airport goes to the center.
You're getting a little out of my depth on the actual flight patterns. I can go through how what's not shown on this is where the security checkpoints release into the terminal, right, as well as where
in the past, the airlines never really entry points didn't dictate where. What I didn't think, and this is from limited knowledge, but from the little experience I have, whenever flights are slower, other than extremely busy times, concentration of flights go to the center of the terminal.
I'm going to defer that question to my to Ross Payton.
It's a very good question. I know that concessionaire traffic is a big concern. With DFW, many of you know 70 to 75, even 80% is transfer traffic. With increased using of the Skylink areas, most of the traffic finds its way into the Skylink zones and nodes, specifically because of the transfer nature of most of the airlines. The security checkpoints themselves, from an O&D standpoint, also dump into those zones. At least 2 of the 3 release into the nodes. The highest concentration of traffic really does happen in those locations. What's not a part of this presentation, but was a part of an earlier presentation, was a Trans-Solutions model of where people would actually go based on flight schedules provided by the airlines. And it showed higher concentrations of people in the nodes themselves. So we have looked at that in depth, even through a modeling exercise.
Good morning. In your example in Terminal D, and I'm specifically referring to the blade signs, they were very linear. In Terminal A, you had a circle blade sign, and in your presentation, they're square blade signs. So I'm just wondering what direction of blade signs. And in the manual, it talks about it could be optional. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify that.
I believe the blade signs are rectilinear, as shown in this picture here, a 3x3 blade sign zone. And those are very, very well defined in the tenant guidelines, concessions guidelines.
In the Skylink nodes, if you can flip back to the one that has the Japanese concept with the railing, and I'm not sure how this all works out. That is considered to be a Skylink node example. It seems like it's very blocked in, and I'm just worried about the ingress of or traffic flow into that area. Well, I'm not quite visualizing where the traffic is going to flow in and out of that compartment area.
That's a good question, and this particular view is it's so close up on the concession. What you're not seeing is the rest of the concourse that you could back out into and view this from a distance. There's actually a corridor on the left side of this that's going down towards the Skylink. This corridor here is right next to it, and what this example, this was actually looking at some of that partitioning that's required if there's a liquor sales. But on that corridor that's dropping down, you can see the escalator back in the distance through the occupancy is the opportunity for concessions traffic to enter that space. It really is up to the concessionaire to define where they want to enter that. We're showing a partition here, again, to look at an example of how that might work. But you literally could make your entry anywhere you wanted on there, as long as you, again, adhere to the guidelines that you need to for your liquor sales requirements. So the intention is not to box people in. It's to provide that both visual and I think pedestrian openness as much as possible. And again, that's something that you as concessionaires can define.
Good morning. My question also regards blade signage. With regard to the support armature for the blade sign, is that going to be provided by the DFW signage vendor, and is there a cost associated with it?
I'm going to defer that question as well.
The next section deals with the guideline, tenant design guidelines. The blade signs specifically speak to a frame that's being provided by DFW. So the frame and armature mounting for that blade sign is provided. The concessionaire will be responsible for the inserts that define the brand portrayed in the blade sign. Okay?
Okay, so with regard to those units that may be on a 90-degree angle, there are a couple in your presentation that showed two sides. Is there a limit to the blade sign? I noticed that in one of the renderings, you had a blade sign on the front, but there was not one on the side, for instance, in this unit. Is there a limit to the number of blade signs that can be used in this type of environment, and also with regard to the storefront sign?
There are very clear criteria for the number of blade signs in each occupancy. They generally are intended to occur on the high side, on the concourse side, where there's space for them and there's that viewing pocket for the large concessions presence on the concourse. Some occupancies, the multi-bay ones, are given more blade sign opportunities than others. I believe on this particular example, of which I think there's 2 or 3 locations in Terminal A, the blade signage would occur on the concourse side, but not on that exit side. There's not a place for it in the ceiling with the ceiling height in that position.
So in this rendering, it appears that the main concourse is on the right side, but you have a blade sign on the left. That would be reversed, perhaps?
No, you're actually standing in the concourse looking at the concessions, and to your right